Hello and welcome. Come along with me as I shop for book treasures in a local library used book sale, as I purchased books that really reflect my eclectic reading life. From vintage collectible books to romantic suspense, poetry, lots of mysteries, and even some cozy mysteries, historical fiction, romance, classics, women's lit, nonfiction, and more. I ended up with 30 books to share with you today as part of this haul, since I found a room where each book was being sold for only 25 cents each. But first, let's rewind to a few weeks ago as I share what I decided to donate to this library sale myself. Here are the 20 books that I am donating to my library book sale. So I'm just going to quickly share with you what it is that I am unhauling. All right, we've got 2 Artemis Fowl books. I have got 3 of these Christian fantasy series books by Jennifer Kropf. I have this nonfiction. I've got this from the Twilight author. I have 2 beautiful hardcover copies of Mrs. Polifax, but it's because I actually already have 2 versions of this, and it's so beautiful though, but I'll donate it. Maybe they'll put it in the vintage pile for a little bit higher price. And then this is an old library book, but I just recently found this in a paperback set that I think I'm going to continue to use as far as my Mrs. Polifax collection. I also have this Christian fantasy as well by Victoria McCombs. I have this nonfiction story by Robert McKee. I have 4 of the books in the Prydian series by Lloyd Alexander, and the only reason I'm getting rid of them is because I have an omnibus version now, and so I don't need those in my collection, even though I love that series. I have the Book of the Month, Alchemy of Secrets. I've got The Hurricane Wars by Tia Guanzon, The Unfortunate Side Effects of Heartbreak and Magic. I have a Mercedes Lackey. I think this is a Snow White retelling. And then I have an Elizabeth Peters, who I really love, but this book is much further down in the series, and I don't know if I'll ever get to it. So I think these 20 books can be better served in other homes. So I'm going to go take those to drop off, because today is a drop-off day for the sale. I decided to start in the higher priced room for the book sale, and that is $2 for hardcovers and $1 for paperback. When I got there were these elderly ladies that were getting all organized.
I had to take a load out. It got too heavy.
And it just was so cute. All right, so off we go. I looked in the paperback section. I found The Salt Path, which I have mentioned to you from a little free library haul video I did. I've actually decided not to read it just because of all the controversy surrounding it. If you haven't heard about it, all you have to do is Google it. I didn't know that. Thank you guys so much for letting me know that there were questions about the authenticity of it. Here is a Karen Slaughter. I've never read them. I found out my mom actually has. And I asked her, was it really scary? And she said, no, it wasn't so bad. So I don't know if maybe because of her last name, I was intimidated and thought they were super scary. But let me know. Have you read a Karen Slaughter? Are they super scary? I love the little cozy mystery section. I found Pen Hollow by Georgette Hare, and I actually left this one here because Beth at Small Home Comforts had mentioned that she really did not enjoy that one. So I just left it on the shelf for someone else to discover. You can see behind me, there actually are not a lot of people in this room. So I don't know if everyone else started in the less expensive room, but there were times when I was alone in the room by myself, which I thought was crazy. So I just was perusing through cozy mysteries and mysteries, as you'll hear later. I seem to collect them, and my TBR pile for mysteries is just way too big. Then there was this Patterson, Balducci, Danielle Steele, Nora Roberts shelf. There's just so many. You just wonder about their ability to have so many books get churned out. I'm always attracted to these adorable modern cover books, but I also know myself and know that I'm just really not into modern romances for the most part, so I left that one there. I also am not sure if it's open door or not, so it stayed there. I then found this Stephen King section. I went through a phase when I was younger where I read a lot of Stephen King's, but at this point I'm really not reading, especially not any of his new works, so again, I left those there for other people to enjoy. And then I moved to the outer area where they had these vintage specially priced books. Here's a Taylor Caldwell. I found one in a used bookstore recently. I kind of wish that I had grabbed that Taylor Caldwell, but I did not. Evelina by Frances Burnett was Jane Austen's favorite book. So I actually have a copy of that at home. Otherwise, I would have grabbed that. I also was really interested in this Inside the Victorian Home book, but it was probably more than what I needed for any Victorian research that I would ever do again. So now I am in the 25 cents per book room, which just feels like you just could collect every single book. They had these books all mixed in. They had the Reader's Digest books in with paperbacks, in with hardcovers, with dust jackets. They had mysteries next to romance, next to, Tom Clancy's. I did see these beautiful Sarah Addison Allen. I hope someone got them. I already have them in the hardcover edition, so that's why I left them there, but I'm hoping someone got it. They had these nice MC Beaton hardcovers with dust jackets that they had separated out. And then I also saw these just old vintage books. Just always interested in trying to find authors that I'm aware of but I haven't read of that are older. We had these Grace Livingston Hill paperback set. Again, as I look at it, like I kind of wish I'd gotten it. I haven't read anything of hers, but am not opposed to it. But it just feels so overwhelming, and I do not have space for all of those books. There also was another Robin Pilcher. I haven't read the one that I currently have, so I left it there. Again, as I look at these, I'm thinking like, it was only a quarter, why didn't I just get it? But my biggest problem is space and lack of space and trying to prioritize books that I want to get to sooner rather than later and not just having them. I didn't know the First Wives Club was a book. Makes me feel like I should try the book to see if I liked the movie better. All right, I am back home. I have my stack of books behind me. I have them divided out so that I can share with you the prices as well. And I've also cleaned them and I've also taken the stickers off. A couple of them still have some of that residue left and I'll work on that a little bit later, but they're pretty much cleaned up and ready for me to share with you for my haul. I'm going to start with the stack of specialty books. I got 3 books that were on a different cart. It was like an antiques or vintage or sought after books cart. So the pricing was a little bit different. So the first one that I got is the works of Robert Burns. I read some of Robert Burns' poems this past year in the Hallow Weird read-along that I did, and I was fascinated by the language structure. I also just think they're beautiful. So something that I did do was to listen to it on YouTube, someone reading it while I was reading the actual poem. So I just love that this was this whole version. I'll never get through all of them, but I did like the idea of just kind of flipping through them as I desire. So that was $2. Another $2 book is this A Daughter of the Land by Jean Stratton Porter. I'm slowly collecting all of the vintage versions of Jean Stratton Porter that I can find, one for each book. So this is not one that I have read, and I am looking forward to reading it. I do like to have dust jackets for them. I'm looking over there because that's where my collection is. I have 3 that don't have dust jackets. So this will just fit right in there. They are this sort of brown, green kinds of color, which I think match really well with the naturalist writing style that Jean Stratton Porter does. And then this one was my most expensive one. And that is On the Night of the Seventh Moon by Victoria Holt, and this one was $5. So I love this 1970s cover. I love that we still have the dust jacket in its entirety for the most part. And I so loved what the blurb on the back said, which is basically that she had a fairy tale encounter in the Black Forest that hardly seemed real to Helena, who was a schoolgirl. And she wondered, could they meet again? Helena did indeed return to this enchanted land, hoping to see once more the man who had won all her affections. She found herself in a historic castle where she could at last find a lifetime of happiness or an untimely death. I thought this would be so great to read in, October, November timeframe. And for $5, again, while it was the most expensive, it's the average book price basically on thrift books for just a regular book. And so I figured I would grab it. It goes to a good cause to the library. So those were my 3 specialty books. This next stack were the books that were in the first room that were priced differently. So the paperbacks were $1 and the hardcovers were $2. Again, really phenomenal prices even at that. So I'll just go through them in no particular order. I have The Alpine Nemesis. This is by Mary Dayheim. I am collecting books that are set in Pacific Northwest region for a trip that we are planning as a family. And she has created a mystery series that is set basically in the Cascades in Washington. This is actually the 14th book in the series. I have not committed to getting them to read on our trip, but I thought maybe it wouldn't be a big deal if I just read this one, if I was in the mood for a cozy mystery while in the Cascades. So we will see. This being the 14th, I have so many mystery series that I am wanting to read to get through, and I cannot imagine starting one and then going all the way to 14. So I might just read this one out of order. And then again, talk about a book being really far down. This one is the Mrs. Jeffries Wins the Prize. This is by Emily Brightwell. It is a Victorian mystery. And look at all of these books in the list that go before this one. I actually have some Emily Brightwell already that I haven't yet read. So again, another series that is kind of intimidating. I do know that Emily Brightwell is actually an American writer, which I didn't realize when I first started collecting these books. But the premise is you have this Scotland Yard inspector who is involved in all of these mysteries, but his housekeeper is actually the brains behind the operation and helping him figure it out. So again, this will probably be just reading kind of out of order. I will not read this one before I read my other Brightwells that I have, so it will just go on my shelf for me to pick up later. Again, those are each $1. This was a recommendation. This is one that still has the residue of the sticker. This was a recommendation by one of the older ladies who worked at the library sale. She was like, oh, you would really like Before We Were Yours. It is the story of a Tennessee Children's Home Society orphanage. And I think it's a dual timeline between 1939 and present day. So it is in kind of banged up condition, but she recommended it, and I figured I'd just add it to my just overflowing historical fiction TBR physical shelf. This is a book that I have read before. This is The Bookshop on the Shore by Jenny Colgan. I have sort of decided, as far as Jenny Colgan is concerned, that I really only have really enjoyed this book. So any of the other Jenny Colgans that I've read just are not feeling like my cup of tea. But this one I really enjoyed. I feel like I need to reread it. And so this would be a great way to do that because now I have it for only $1. This next one was, for me, a crazy find. This one was also only $1. This is Murakami's A Wild Sheep Chase. I have read a couple Murakami's, and they are just wild, kind of fever dream, sometimes over-sexualized. But I have been hearing about A Wild Sheep Chase from a couple different booktubers that I follow, and it's enough for it to have piqued my interest. So I have been wanting to give it a try, but it is not in our library system. And so to find this in the, used book sale was just, I scooped that up. So $1 for A Wild Sheep Chase by Murakami. And then I got these two. These two were splurges. They were $2 each. This is a counterfeit lady novel. This is A City of Spies. This is a book by Victoria Thompson. It says she is the best-selling author of the Gaslight Mysteries. So there's the list of the Gaslight Mysteries that are known. This is the first book in her new series, it looks like, Counterfeit Lady Novels. This was originally published in 2017. I like that it's the first book in the series. And then we have City of Secrets. And this is the second book in the series. So, again, just to kind of pile on to my mysteries physical TBR that's just sky high, we now have the first two books in yet another series. So, for the specialty books and then the books that were in that separate room, I paid $19 for 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 books. And now we are into the next stack. These are all books that I got in the 25-cent room. When the ladies first told me that all the books were in there for 25 cents, I was like, I feel like I should get them all. I mean, 25 cents for a book just feels crazy. I did restrain myself, and I got 20. I had to recount. 20. So $5 total for all of the rest of these books. So we'll start with what I think is a beautiful book. This is Evergreen by Belva Plain. This is, written in 1978. I have lately really been wanting to pick up books by authors that my grandmother loved and also finding them in the years where she may have read that. So some of the authors that she loved have continued writing books after my grandmother passed away. I probably won't pick those up. I want to pick up books that there is a chance that my grandmother had read. So this Belva Plain from 1978 absolutely could have been one that she read, and so I scooped this up. I then had grabbed this, The Wilder Muir, The Curious Nature of John Muir, and these are different selections by John Muir himself. I was drawn to two things. So first of all, I loved the cover art, and then the other thing is, as part of this Pacific Northwest trip that we are planning, I'm hoping to get into the very tippy top of the northern part of California, which is John Muir's kind of haunts, and that he's pretty well known for. And so I thought this would be a great book to pick up while traipsing through the redwood forests. Another book set in that area, I think it's more Sonoma in California, is this Susan Wiggs' The Apple Orchard. I don't know that much about it, but this is not part of a series. She writes a lot of books in series, but this, I believe, is just a standalone. It starts out with recipes. I don't know. This just seems like a really great option and probably one that I will also try to pack even though we're not going down into Sonoma. Then again, in that theme of travel books, I had already done research and decided to read Ivan Doig's Montana series that he has. There is another book that is the first one in this series. And I think these are the next two books in this series. You saw, as I was going through this, bringing you along with me in through the sale, that there were a lot of his books there. I just grabbed the two that I knew were in the series I wanted to read. So we have Work Song and Sweet Thunder. And I will just pack these along in the camper. And if I really love the first one in the series, I'll have the other two at my disposal to read. And if I'm not a fan, I will just throw these in a little free library out there. Somebody will be happy. I also got more mystery series to start. So I grabbed these two Martin Walkers. So this is Bruno, Chief of Police, and the Dark Vineyard. And it is in the Mystery of the French Countryside series. Sign me up for the French Countryside series. We got the first two books in that series. And then I got this Maisie Dobbs. So I have read the first Maisie Dobbs and enjoyed it. This one does not match with mine. Mine is a paperback version. I think this one might be the fourth one. Somebody tell me. So I was really happy to grab it. And the fact that I have paperback in, one part of the series and hardcover in the other is not going to bother me. I'm just going to be happy that I have it at my disposal, that I can just grab. And I need to, again, just add this to the list, continue through the Maisie Dobbs series. For the next part of the stack, I got 2 Barbara Cartlands. These are books, or actually the author, that someone has recommended that I read on my channel. And I thought this was so fortuitous. Somebody had said back in April, I think, said, hey, have you tried Barbara Cartland? This was in response to my video about not really liking romances, but reading the Georgette Hares and really like them. And they were like, have you tried Barbara Cartland? And I thought, well, no. And I was thinking, have I seen Barbara Cartland? Lo and behold, now I have. Here's Barbara. Look at her and her dog. I feel like Barbara and I could be friends. Look at her. No, we could not be friends. Never mind. She is looking like a diva. I am not in her circle. But anyway, we've got Fire on the Snow and A Princess in Distress. These look like serious romances, but I'm definitely up for recommendations from you guys, so I'm going to put these actually at the top of the stack because I do want to try them. Then I found 2 Ava Ibbetsons. The first one is A Company of Swans. Now, do I already have A Company of Swans? Yes. We read this for the Cozy Reader Book Club last year, and so I have that. But I loved these 2 paperback copies, and so I will most likely replace my copy of A Company of Swans with this one and pass the other one on. And then I also found this kind of matching style of Medensky Square. I'm going to just really quickly read the back. The world passes through the portals of Susanna Weber's elegant dress shop in Medensky Square, a quaint and peaceful corner of Imperial Vienna. In a glittering time of music and romance, in the final glorious days before the First World War, the indomitable Susanna touches numerous lives as matchmaker, comforter, confidant, and passionate lover. But secret sorrows and consuming desires exist beneath Susanna's cheerful facade, embroidering the rich tapestry of a remarkable life as intricate and sumptuous as the beautiful clothing she so painstakingly creates. So, I'm excited about this one for sure. And so beautiful of a cover. Next, I have Mrs. Roosevelt's Confidant by Susan Elia McNeill. This is in her Maggie Hope mystery series. I think maybe this is number 5 because on the back she's got 4 other books that are listed on there. So I'm in that question of, as a used book buyer, do I look for the other ones and hold on to this? Do I just read this one, see what I think, and then go back, as I've done in other series? I do love this little Scottish terrier on the cover, though. I found an Ellie Griffiths Stranger Diaries. This is, I think, not part of a series. I loved the cover. It was very interesting, so I grabbed that. And then I am getting the Ruth Galloway series in this particular paperback format. So when I saw this, I just grabbed it. This is the 6th book in the series. Why don't they put the number on the spine for all these books that are in the series? It's like so much of a mystery to figure out what number it is. But anyway, in the front of the book, it looks like this is the 6th book, which means I have a couple other books to buy before I get to this one. But I just loved that it was in this particular print. And so I got The Outcast Dead. So I got this Wreaths and Garlands DK book. Am I going to actually make this stuff? Chances are no. But look at this. I feel like this is just one of those books that's just great to flip through, to put out on the coffee table, to maybe inspire me in other ways. So for $25, I grabbed this. Maybe I'll do some Wreaths and Garlands. Chances are not, though. I found a book that I have recommended, which is Peter Mail's A Year in Provence. I recommended this, I believe, in my palette cleanser video. So when you're not really sure kind of what to pick up next, you've been reading a lot of something, or you're kind of in a slump, the idea was that there are books out there that you could pick up that are just kind of easy to kind of jump back into or to listen to. So I listened to A Year in Provence and really enjoyed it. Just could put it on while I was folding laundry and, loading the dishwasher. But I would love to have it on my shelf, and I love this matte paperback version, and it's blurbed on the back by Julia Child. So I love this. So I think I squealed like, oh, and then add to that, I found 3 more Peter Mails to go with that series, and I have not read them. So I have Toujours Provence. I think this is the second book in the series. I mean, the covers are such a delight. And then we have the third one, which is Encore Provence, New Adventures in the South of France. Same publisher, Vintage Departures. And then we have, this one's a different publisher, Acquired Tastes. This one, the cover illustrations are probably not my favorite, but this is just yet another kind of like travel memoir humorous story. Now I have more of his writing that I can just pick up and read on a whim, just kind of read a little bit here and there. So I got more Peter Mail. So that is the 30 books that I got from the library sale for $24. I feel like that's a win. So let me know what you kind of saw me leave behind that you thought I should have picked up. I love to hear that. I've definitely since purchased books on Thrift Books with my free credits based on you guys saying, oh, you should have gotten that one if I didn't already have it. And then secondly, let me know of what I shared, what you would move to the top of your physical TBR. As always, you guys, thanks so much for watching, and until next time.